Cape Town, South Africa. The Akademik Fyodorov diesel-electric research vessel leaves port. She hoists the flag to show a marine pilot is aboard, an officer with unrivaled knowledge of these waters. He steers the ship out into the Atlantic and then returns to dock. This is the very last opportunity for several weeks to call home with a cell phone. Very soon, all mobiles will be far out of range. The ship is setting sail for a vast and inaccessible area. If there's any kind of emergency, there'll be no one to provide any kind of help. The Russian ship sails south to the land of eternal ice and snow, to Antarctica.
The first officer will now explain the code of conduct on board.
There are 23 passengers aboard the Akademik Fyodorov, and for some this is their first trip to the Antarctic zone. But for one passenger, it's become a familiar journey. This is the 26th time he's followed this route.
Back in 1964, after our Arctic trip, we went to Antarctica. That was the first time I felt so acutely just how far away Antarctica is.
10 days and nights of ocean lie ahead.
Well, this is the radar. As you can see, there's nothing there. Can't see any other ships, just icebergs. Here you have to look out for yourself. No one to relay messages except us. Any other ships or rescue centers are miles away now.
It's now March, Antarctic autumn. Winter in the southern hemisphere begins at the same time as the northern summer. Several times over the short summer season, the Akademik Fyodorov will approach the coast of the most remote land on Earth. This is her final voyage of the year. They must deliver almost a year's worth of food and fuel to the ice stations and take away seasonal crews and aircraft.
We work as a tanker, a cargo vessel, a passenger ship, and an aircraft carrier.
Detailed navigational and operational plans are in place. But autumn has arrived, and no one can ever know just what to expect from Antarctica.
Antarctica always comes up with surprises. You have to keep your eyes open because there's always something going wrong. If it actually goes well for too long, I start to worry. There's no way Antarctica will let you go on like that without incident. It's unpredictable.
Bags containing polar clothing are stored in the freezer. When the ship left St. Petersburg 4 months ago, the weather was rainy and damp most of the time. If the bags were to get wet while being loaded, they may rot in a warm hold. To keep them in optimum condition, the clothes are kept on ice until they're needed.
Nikolai, get out of there, you'll freeze!
The standard winter outfit consists of 4 pairs of shoes, thermal underwear, a fleece scarf, and a wind cheater.
Oh, this one is for winter. The other one is a mid-season coat. And this one's for special occasions. The coats are much better this time. Look, they also have a vest. Wait, turn around. But did they listen to what we said? No, they didn't. We wanted the straps to be crossed, otherwise they slip off your back. We write the same comments every single year, but it's not so often that they put things right.
Most of the passengers on board are driver mechanics. They'll usually get through about 4 sets of clothing in a year. Their main job is to deliver fuel to the most remote and hard-to-reach stations.
Is it okay? Does it look fine?
Of course it's okay. It's for work, not your wedding.
This will be Sergei's first ever Antarctic winter.
Of course it's a little loose. It's almost twice the size of you.
The other drivers have been to Antarctica many times.
Oh, that's my lovely car.
The route to the Vostok station is the world's most challenging trip. 1,500 kilometers from the coast. In summer, temperatures can reach 40 below zero, but the record winter low is a staggering -89.
I shudder to think of it.
This route will take about 40 days. The trucks can only move very slowly. They carry fuel tanks to the highest Arctic station, which is 3,500 meters above sea level. But oxygen levels there equate to an altitude of 5,000 meters anywhere else.
А где твоя-то первая? А, вот она.
The transmission and mainframe, rollers, wheels, unsides, all those can break easily. The overload factor is huge. Ropes that can seem strong can break and snap in freezing temperatures.
The most difficult part is the route itself. It seems endless. It takes ages just to cover about 60 kilometers.
And that's actually a good going.
You can't do anything. You can't make the time go faster or speed up the process. You just pray for the best and hope the truck won't fail you. You want it to be over as soon as possible. You just want to be back home and that's it.
So you get back home, and in time you start feeling a strong desire to return here. The work is difficult, but the guys are great, and you feel good once everything is done.
I feel it even now. I want to go as soon as I can.
He's young.
I bet you guys were the same at first.
All that will come soon enough. For now, though, the ship closes in on Antarctica. The ocean appears very calm. On the bridge are the captain, the navigation officer, and 2 helmsmen. A crew change is underway. The crew watch is reinforced. You have to be twice as vigilant the closer you get to Antarctica. For navigation purposes, the region is still underexplored, and icebergs can drift for very long distances.
It was built in 1980.
These pictures are from 1987. They chronicle the maiden voyage of the Akademik Fyodorov, the first diesel-electric ice ship to sail to Antarctica.
Our first trip was good. A really good one. I remember we were in the captain's room, all 3 of us having tea. Yes, I remember that clearly. We were having tea, the table was there. I felt a huge bang, and the cup fell off the table, and the tea spilled everywhere. It was a rock that wasn't shown on the chart. Everything was fine in the end, though, and the rock's position was mapped.
Here it is. 4.5 meters. The 1987 obstacle.
The ship literally went through a trial of fire and ice.
It was about 4 p.m. during a tea break. We had cabbage pies that day. I still remember that. And then it all happened. A fire broke out in the engine room. One of the pipes burst and fuel oil spilled down onto the white-hot manifold. There was a huge fire. Even now I feel uncomfortable when I hear a fire alarm. I changed the settings on all our clocks back at home because I can't stand the noise of an alarm. All in all, the ship went through thick and thin. It's the best ship in the whole Antarctic. It always gets the job done. It's never failed. She's really an incredible ship.
It's even written somewhere. The Akademik Fyodorov was the only ship in the world able to reach the North Pole alone, unaided by an icebreaker.
We go to the poles quite often now, but we still have a lot of respect for the Arctic region. It's a really harsh environment, and there are nuclear icebreakers there. Antarctica is even worse. Besides, we can't use nuclear icebreakers. Antarctica is much worse than the Arctic region, more severe. This is my 26th trip to Antarctica, and I've already been to the Arctic 25 times. Antarctica is much more interesting. This trip is more fascinating and extensive. It takes at least 6 months to get there. The Arctic region is like a relaxing walk. It only takes about a month.
In 1985, Yuri Khromov once headed for Antarctica aboard the Mikhail Somov. His plan was to be home after 6 months, but in the end he was away for 11. The ship had set sail later than planned. It was autumn when the crew reached Antarctica. It cut through the ice close to the shoreline, but they soon discovered that they were too close. The crew's reaction was well coordinated and fast. As always happens in autumn, the weather changed abruptly. The ice around the ship stuck together, and the vessel became trapped.
Imagine a sugar bowl that's been emptied into a hollow. There's tons of ice all over the place, and the ship's just not able to move. We fought against it for many days, trying to move out of there. Then the wind came up, and the ice blocks started to shift slightly. So we were able to work our way through the coastal ice belt a little. It almost cracked the hull. We tried to head for the open sea, but it was already impassable by that time.
That was when the crew realized they'd be spending winter aboard their ship. There's no way to help a vessel that's stuck in an ice trap, and so the Somov had to stay just where it was until spring.
That ship was weak, in fact 3 times weaker than the Akademik Fyodorov. This one might just escape the ice, but I'm not really sure. The Fyodorov has never been trapped in ice, not even once. It's very powerful, and when circumstances get really difficult, we can rely on it. We believe its power will help and save us.
12 o'clock. Crew changeover in the engine room. In all, 22 people are involved in here. The crew's quite big, but such a unique voyage demands it. They have only themselves to count on when things go wrong.
You know how big it is? It can break the ice. We don't even need an icebreaker here, and the ice is sometimes seriously thick. It can reach 2 meters sometimes. When the ship shunts back and forth to try and break it, it's a really gorgeous sight. Let's cook something. We have lots of cabbage. What about lamb?
Let's make harcho soup. We have plenty of ribs.
Menus have to be planned well in advance for several months. There's no way extra provisions can be delivered. Feeding the entire crew calls for 200 liters of borscht and 400 pies every day. It will take about an hour and a half to make liver pancakes for everyone on board.
We're preparing chicken for today's dinner. Here we have greens. Some of them are frozen. There's cauliflower, grapes, nectarines, oranges, pears, apples, cucumbers, and tomatoes. That should be enough until we get back to Cape Town.
The lower holds are jammed with food. They're carrying a year's supply of provisions for several ice stations.
Here we have diced carrot, cabbage, different types of broccoli, and this is meat from Uruguay. And these are frozen pancakes.
The consumption rate has been calculated according to old Soviet standards. It assumes that each polar explorer will eat around 8 kilos of meat in a month and around 4 eggs a week. They have their own way to keep the eggs fresh.
To stop the yolks going off, you have to turn them every 2 weeks. They may get a little dry at the stations because of the low humidity, but they will never go bad.
Aboard the Fyodorov, there's plenty of water, food, fuel, and even helicopters, as well as people with a wealth of experience in extreme survival. The crew's favorite joke is that if the apocalypse should come, the Akademik Fyodorov would be the best place to be. Drinking water is drawn from the dock, and there are 2 fresh water plants on board. Heat from the main engine is used to distill seawater to remove the salt. They're halfway to their destination, Today, the crew will conduct a radio test. So far, though, all the stations remain quiet. There are no guarantees yet that they're within range.
Calling all Antarctica stations. This is Akademik Fyodorov. Radio check. Please respond. Vostok, Progress, Mirny, Novolazarovskaya, please respond.
Novolazarovskaya, reading you level 4. Now is the time to discuss the detailed plans for unloading all the fuel and food and to evacuate the departing crews from the stations. The action plan was devised some time ago, but nothing can be taken for granted in Antarctica.
Well, we're going to Novolazarovska now. It's already April and we haven't been able to reach it for 2 years. We couldn't get to the barrier area. There was no way to push through the ice.
Many thousands of desolate kilometers of Antarctica contain nothing but icy desert. This is an oasis of rock at the heart of the frozen wilderness. Here, 100 kilometers from the sea, is the Novolazarovskaya Antarctic Station, one of the toughest locations on the continent to supply.
The Novolazarovskaya station's situation is going to be tough. That's what I think.
Recently, it's taken a long time to get supplies there. We haven't been able to get to it for 2 years.
The solid sheets that form the inshore ice belt are known as fast ice. They can be up to 2 or 3 meters thick in places. To break through, the Fyodorov has to reverse and then ram it hard, using the full weight of its steel hull.
A few years ago, that happened here. There were about 4 solid miles of fast ice all the way to the shore. We were breaking it down for 5 days. I'm hoping for some help from Mother Nature. A massive cyclone is due to come through. That will generate waves big enough to break the ice. We can't cut through so much fast ice by ourselves. It's 3 years old now, and last year we couldn't get through when it was just 2. It was more than 3 meters deep then, with about a meter of snow on top of that.
They had no choice but to unload the cargo onto the ice, where the Indian Arctic mission usually moors. It's a long way from the Russian station. There was about a year's supply of fuel and ice, and at that moment, Antarctica bared her teeth again. A huge chunk of fast ice broke off, and almost the whole year's fuel supply for a station was lost to the ocean.
Only 4 out of 10 fuel tanks were left. They had to conserve fuel for the whole winter after that. That wasn't all, though. A few containers with spare parts and some snowmobiles were also lost.
Everyone is anxious about what further surprises Novolazarovskaya might hold. For now, though, the Akademik Fyodorov edges closer to the Progress station.
Sometimes Progress surprises us too. Once we had an incident there. We were unloading fuel when the ice belt started cracking. So we had to hoist the aircraft and detach the hose. We even had to cut it a little. It was an emergency and we had to get off quickly. It was impossible to turn back because of an iceberg that was close by. Lots of extreme things happen here.
We had to wait half an hour at the Progress station. The ice belt was massive, but it suddenly started cracking. There was a huge iceberg behind us. It flipped over and stopped. Then it flipped the other way.
The ship closes in on the Progress station. The critical factor now is weather. All the food containers will be flown in. Will the ship have to pull back and wait for better flying weather?
It turned out that the Progress station frontal activity was at its peak. For 10 days, there was intense and heavy snowfall. Visibility was practically nothing, and the flight ceiling was 0. So we had to wait 10 days until it finally stopped snowing.
Radio check. Progress, stand by. We're almost with you.
After a lengthy trip, the long-awaited Antarctic shoreline appears. This land can only be reached during a very short window of time each year. Modern transport is of little help. The only reliable means of getting here is by sea.
All Russian Antarctic expedition members, please report to the helipad.
This time, the weather's fine. and the progress station receives its full quota of food and fuel supplies. But there were still some unexpected events. Data on ice formation in the area is downloaded using a special antenna. This vital information is used not just to plot the ship's course, but to select the right block of ice on which to land the aircraft.
I still remember the Ilyushin 14 lifting off from a cracking ice block. Imagine, it lifts off and the ice cracks right after it. It was terrifying.
This Antonov 2 aircraft will soon be taking its first flight in Antarctica. It will be unloaded onto a suitable ice block and assembled beside the ship from where it will take off. The scientists plan to use the plane all year round. Today they'll be taking another aircraft from the Druzhnaya field station. As usual, another AN-2 lands close to the ship. A host of containers is moved down to the ice, where the plane is disassembled.
That's when the waves came. It started swinging all the way out.
I was doing something down in my cabin. Then all of a sudden, I heard a huge noise out there. I went to check it out. It was the shore ice going away.
They started screaming, "Get away, fast!" But it was impossible. The hoses were already attached and the fuel tanks were empty.
The water was very close, within just 2 meters, so we had to hoist that aircraft up fast and get it onto the hatch cover. Thank God we did it. If it had gone the other way, it would have caused a lot of trouble. Now we'll see what the Novolazarevskaya station has in store for us. All we need is waves. The waves that caused all the trouble at Druzhnaya station may just help us here at Novolazarevskaya.
Antarctica has yet another surprise up its sleeve. The shore ice that had tested and tried the ship's endurance, as well as the patience and resourcefulness of the crew for 2 full years, has gone all by itself.
40 meters to the barrier.
The Fyodorov heads straight for the barrier. The Novolazarevskaya station's fuel storage is just a few meters above the shore. The location was chosen as it's the most convenient place to unload.
25 meters to the barrier.
All crew members, including the scientists, have a part to play in the mooring procedure.
2 meters to the barrier.
Keeping such a large ship stable on the glacier is no easy task. They must drill into the ice to a depth of around 1 meter. Using an ordinary ladle, loose ice is manually bailed out. An empty gas cylinder comes into play, as it offers the best fit. Timber dries out and breaks too quickly. The crew unloads the aviation fuel for the aircraft that will head into Antarctica this summer. They also drop off fuel for heating during the endless polar winter. This is the moment when the driver mechanics, once just passengers aboard the Fyodorov, go to work. From here, caravans will drive inland to the year-round Novolazarevskaya station. The route covers 100 kilometers of bleak ice desert. The weather is perfect, and work continues all day long and into the night. Nothing can be left until tomorrow, because at any moment conditions might change suddenly and without warning.
In the northern hemisphere, this kind of wind would be called a hurricane, but here it's just a regular storm. Extreme weather like this is commonplace in Antarctica.
As soon as their work was done, a huge storm rolled in, with winds of up to 32 meters per second. The ship has no choice but to wait until it ends. It may take a few days, though, but that no longer matters. The main tasks have been completed.
This year things went smoothly. Surprisingly, it was over very fast. I didn't expect that.
The Akademik Fyodorov heads north again to Africa. After 194 days, for more than half a year, the crew has been out on the open ocean. Back at the Cape Town seaport, there's still another 28 days or so to St. Petersburg. But after Antarctica, Even here feels almost like home.